every day to see how you dressed. It may be the same thing over and over and over, but you had to dress, you had to check your dress code. And you better be dressed like that when the MP saw you on the post, or you were in trouble, trouble, trouble. You just, everybody had to dress according to the dress code. I came in from, I had a job that I was one of the few that had a regular job. I was a tractor trailer driver in the motor pool, assigned to the motor pool, civilian motor pool, that is, to haul from the warehouses to the military bases. That was the Marine, the Navy, and the Army. I was the relief driver. If they had a load that scheduled for one of the ships or someplace in the complex that had to be delivered, and it didn't get delivered like today, they would hook a truck like I drove under the trailer, and they would give me a trip ticket the next morning, and they would deposit me with the truck, and I would drive the truck to the wherever it needed to go to get rid well, it wasn't exactly get rid of it, but it was to deliver what should have been delivered yesterday. So the Navy had a pretty stiff policy. Those little Liberty ships you may have heard of, they could pull on, we would haul merchandise and put it in a warehouse, stretched way out. It was all palletized and shrink wrapped and where you could pick it up and load it into the, a ship had two holds, the front and the back. A dock where the ships came in was a left and a right. So when they pulled into the bay, the tugboats picked it up, brought it into the San Francisco Bay, and put it in its correct bay where it was scheduled by the Transportation Corps. And you couldn't dock those ships. They tried it, and they run through a building, and it didn't work too good, so they just discontinued that way back in it. But I had gone and I drove a truck like that one time, about 2 miles straight down 101 in South San Francisco. They assigned me to that motor pool, and boy took me over there. And I told everybody that I knew I couldn't drive that tractor and trailer. I finally went to my motor officer in my company. His name was Phelan, P-H-E-L-A-N. And I told him, I said, listen, Phelan, I said, the only time I ever drove one of them trucks is that when we were training, whatever you was calling, when I drove it straight down Highway 101 toward Los Angeles. I said, I can't drive them trucks. He backed up and looked at me and said, Wyatt, we called everybody by the last name in the military. He said, Wyatt? I said, yes, sir. He said, don't get hurt learning. I said, sir? He said, just don't get hurt learning. I reported for work, and they put me in a cab of a truck with a young boy named Roy something. I don't remember his last name. He drove me across the 8.5 mile Oakland Bay Bridge. We went around the loop, we come back to the loop, and he parked the trailer. It was kind of funny, but it was scary. When he parked that trailer, he just set it down and we went back to the post in Oakland. I got up the next morning. I went down to where I was supposed to report to work. And I told our motor dispatcher, I said, you know who I am, but I don't know you. But there's another thing I know that you don't know. You're going to dispatch me to drive a truck that I can't drive. Boy, he does a double look at me, you know. But I said, I'll tell you what, I know enough about driving 1.5 ton trucks. It was an international. I said, if you give me a ticket to a truck, when I find it in this parking lot, I'm going to climb up in it. They were all overhead trucks. I said, I'm going to climb up in that thing. And the first thing I'm going to do is learn to crank it and kill it. I said, I won't move it until I know how to do it. He kind of looked at me and he said, are you serious? I said, yes, sir. I sure am. He said, what are you going to do with it when you learn how to crank it? I said, there's a bunch of empty warehouses down here. I said, I'm going to get in that thing and I'm going to find me an empty warehouse. And when I find it, I'll be there the rest of the day. Because when I leave, I'm going to be able to drive it. I spent nearly 3 days at that warehouse. But in the meantime, boy, was it life, it was awful. I took a trailer and went to I just went to the warehouses. I drove down in it. And there was a huge stack of scrap lumber back there. And once you went in this way, you went out that way. I got down in that Pier 13. I won't forget that neither. I got down to the end of Pier 13. There was a bunch of stevedores down there. I stopped because I couldn't go nowhere else. I'm sitting there and the foreman come by. He said, morning, soldier. I said, morning. He said, you got a problem? I said, yes. What? Me? That's exactly what I told him. I said, me? He tucked his head a little over. He was an Italian prisoner that they had brought over here from Italy. He says, what are you talking about? I said, well, let's put it like this. I'm sitting in a truck that I can drive straight down the road and maybe just like I did. I said, I brought it from Oakland over here and now I'm here. He looks at me, he said, all you gotta do is back it out. I said, yes, sir, that's what I'm talking about. I said, I don't know how to back it up. Well, they all got kind of curious and they gathered around me. And he finally said, I'll tell you what. Said, if you can turn it around and hit it back out this way, I'll have these boys put a forklift under it and we'll carry it outside for you. Well, it sounded great, but at the same time it almost scared me to death. I cranked that thing up, and before you knew it, I had it hung over that pile of lumber and just sit there. He walked up to me and said, "What do you do now?" I said, "I'll sit here till I starve." He said, "Honestly, Mr. Case, you drive by that thing?" I said, "No." I said, "You what I do is what you saw me." There must have been 6 or 8 of those stevedores. They gathered around me. They got real curious. He shut one eye and scratched the side of his head. He said, "I tell you what, Duke. You get out of it, and I'm going to have one of these boys put this forklift on here like I told you. We're going to pick it up off that pile of lumber, and we're going to set it down in the aisle, and then we're going to take our trucks and turn it around. And said if it don't, we'll take it out backwards." I climbed down out of that thing. Old Federals. I don't know whether they still make the things or not. Here come a big forklift. He looked at that driver and said, "Could that thing pick this truck up?" He said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I want you to pick it up, raise it up, and I want you to turn it around, and I want you to set it back down and back out under it." That young man come over with that forklift, put it under my truck, raised it up, set it back down, and that foreman looked at me. He said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "I think I can put it back to Oakland, but I said, I guarantee you one thing, sir, when I come back, I'll be able to drive it." The next morning I got up just bright and early. I was supposed to be on the job at 8. I walked into that district's office, and I walked right up to him. I said, "Sir, I want a trip ticket to a big tractor, and it's going to be gone all day today and maybe tomorrow, because I'm going to learn to drive it today." He looked at me kind of funny. He made me out of tickets. He just couldn't believe what I was telling him. I told him, I said, "I'm telling you the truth." I said, "Somewhere down yonder, there'll be an empty warehouse like there was yesterday. I'm going to find me a couple of rocks or a couple of something or whatever, and I'm going to build me a parking space." I said, "Me and your truck are going to teach me to drive that truck today." He kind of laughed. I said, "I'm not joking, sir." He said, "Where in the heck were you raised?" I backed my head and I yelled out just as loud as I could take her to in that place. I said, "Birmingham, Alabama." He said, "I knew you were from the South." I said, "Enough said." Honey, I took that truck and I went to that warehouse complex, and I went just as far toward the interstate as I could go. The last warehouse, interstate. They had interstates in California in 1944.
Wow.
Yes, sir. I got out of that cab and I walked to that place over till I found me a couple of rocks about so big. I walked back to that warehouse and I set one rock down and I set the other rock down, and I put me an imaginary line right between them. I did just what I told him I was going to do. I cranked that old Federal truck. I put it in reverse and run backwards 3 or 4 times so And besides being way up here, the gear shift was back here. Man, was I in strange territory. You better believe I was. Ooh. But I put that thing in back and forth for an 8-hour shift. Back and forth. I had it fixed where I could back a truck. I didn't know what to do to back up a tractor trailer. But I had watched the other fellas the day before, so I'd have a knowledge of what to do and how to learn. But when I went back to the San Francisco side, I was in complete confidence that I would drive that truck across Oakland Bay Bridge. And if you ain't never seen it, it's a huge complex. I got that thing across over there with that load, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it was pineapple. Went to the Navy. And I delivered that pineapple. I dropped that trailer just like anybody else would. And I said, thank you, Lord. I've been driving tractor trailers ever since. I mean, it was a serious thing. The Lord helped me through the military just like He helped me through high school.